we're going to be having more forums now. So now that we're kind of regathering here, we're going to be having some more of these forums to kind of re-engage, to kind of reconnect with all the information that we gathered, or really that the Building Our Future group gathered. And I just want to say how amazed I was at how much work these folks have done, and just really just talking to architects and just crunching numbers and stuff like that. And so it was really amazing to see that. So we're going to be having these forums throughout the fall here, and hopefully leading up to a vote coming up in January. So when we look at that report that Rachel gave us, let me go to the next slide here. Some of the strengths that she mentioned shouldn't be a shock to anyone here. It's our minister, our staff, our community, and all of you. And I think everybody, I hope everybody would agree that we're really well positioned from that perspective, that we have a really great staff, we have a real, cover your ears, we're a really great minister, and I'm just so excited to see, what he's got every week. And so that's one of the great things about this place. It's one of the reasons why I've been coming here, and a lot of people have been coming here is because of that. But along with that, there are some challenges. And she said the top challenge is this building, the facilities. And, we've been sort of limping along here. And, the tree has kind of accelerated the decay, I think, a little bit. But we have, we've gotten a lot of great service out of this building. But it is a challenge to keep it running, to keep everything going strong here. And so the top priority would be for improving the building and or expanding the building. And one of the things that she said is that this was really designed for a congregation of about 150 people. And I think you can see that really well in the size of our parking lot, which is really not designed for more than about a certain number of cars out there. So we've been discussing the need for more space for a long time. We've kind of just, keeping it going here, keeping the wheels from coming off. But we want to, part of the discussion we want to have is where do we go from here? What do we do? And we've got different options, I guess. And one of them would be to, just basically decide what we want in a building. Do we want to continue with this building? Do we want to continue with the same things we've had, expand it, find a way to make it bigger, or move to a new location and build a new building? So what do we want in a building? What is the kind of things that we value about the building that we're in, about the actual church building? So when we've been talking about this, I guess it's things that we imagine that we're going to have in a building, that the building and grounds would sort of express, and that being what it is now, and that there's been a lot of surveys. And we've come to the conclusion, or it seems like the overwhelming sentiment, that the current building just creates a lot of barriers or impediments to living our values, to just, creating a welcoming, compassionate community that nurtures spiritual growth and practices justice. And, we're a very welcoming group, but the building itself could be more welcoming, And when we read the mission statement there, to be a welcoming, compassionate community that nurtures spiritual justice, I would put the emphasis on the growth. That's an important word in that mission statement. So I will turn it over to Kim.
Thank you. So over the years, we've been gathering everybody's ideas. We've been jotting them all down, writing them all down. I remember sitting in this room and having big sheets of paper up there where people were writing things on stickies and posting them up and trying to generate our consensus about what it was we're looking in a building. And so the Building Our Future team did a really great job of consolidating those and creating some statements about what we value in a building based on our mission statement. So when we're thinking about welcome and compassion, putting all of our ideas together, they came up with a statement that we value a space that's committed to compassion and accessibility that is more natural than just an accommodation, including gender-neutral bathrooms, easy wayfinding for a diversity of mobility and sensory needs, and spaces that are connected, inviting, and inspirational. And so I want to take a few minutes and talk about what do you imagine that to be? As I think about a couple of things, I'm thinking about this meal here tonight. And I remember that before we had to stop for the pandemic, people who had walkers or wheelchairs found it incredibly difficult to participate in this kind of a gathering because this is a small space. They would come down the elevator and we would have tables and chairs in the way, and we would try very hard to move the tables and chairs to accommodate them. They would find it difficult to get around, to even get themselves a meal, and there was really no option for them to be participating in the kitchen. We should have a space that allows for all of that, for everybody in the congregation to participate equally in those things. I'm thinking about the ramp upstairs that prior to that, I remember a service with Carol when she had broken her leg and we had to lift her wheelchair up over the step. And so now we have a ramp that looks very natural with that. The carpets match, the wood is gorgeous and it matches. If you need to get onto the chancel and you can't go over a step, it's very natural. It doesn't bring attention. You can naturally do that. That's making an accommodation that is more natural. And so we talk about our building. We were in conversation a while ago with Rasa, who was looking at our building as possibly renting our building during the week. And one of the issues was the bathrooms. That if they use the RE wing, we have two very small bathrooms that are not accessible. You have to go up and down stairs. And they were talking about, we would have to schedule our day to walk an entire class all the way over to this part of the church to use this bathrooms. That's not very, welcoming or friendly. Does anybody have any other thoughts or things that they can imagine or remember, or what would you like to see in a building that is more welcome and compassionate to the people who want to come here? I know people have ideas, but we all have full bellies. Just think about when you walk in the building, it's not always clear where you need to go. Yes, John.
I was going to say that when you come in, you're coming into the cloakroom basically, and it's not really. When you come in, you're just coming into the cloakroom, and I've walked into other churches where you come in, it's just stunning, or just open or something like that. And I know we're all going to have coats hanging up and everything, but I think that's one of the parts that could be improved.
Right. What are people's first impressions when they walk in the building? Anybody else have thoughts? Excuse me.
I can talk loud. Natural light.
Natural light, she's saying. Windows, that sort of thing. All right, let's look at the next one. Okay.
When you walk in the sanctuary, it would be nice not to walk in the front of it.
We don't want to be having everybody see us if we're walking in a few minutes late into the sanctuary, or if we have to leave a few minutes early.
Well, wearing masks. this is the world we live in now. That's I'm not going to go back. If it's not COVID, it's going to be something else. More outdoor space for congregating outside.
More outdoor space for congregating outside. We got some asphalt and some parking lots, but that's about it. It would be lovely to have some green areas, wouldn't it?
Well, so far, all I've heard is a bias to church. We want a new church. I don't hear any comparison of the strengths of the present church. Sure, the building is old. It was built in a different era. But that also has some strengths to me. So all I predominantly hear is a bias. We want a new church. We don't want to talk about the old strengths or the old attributes of the present church.
Thank you for raising that. I think that it's really important to the board that not be the bias right now, because some of the options that we could look at are keeping it status quo if we decide what's the best option. Some of the options could be, could we remodel this building in a way that would give us some of the things that we're envisioning in our vision. So that's where I think it's really important that everybody have the opportunity to raise their questions and their comments and share that with everybody and with the Building Our Future team through the forums so that we can hear all those perspectives and think about all the different options that we want to have. Let's look at the next one. The second statement that the Building Our Future team came up with is that based on what the congregation as a whole through all those meetings gathered their ideas, is focusing on community and spiritual growth. We would like a space that's intended for use beyond ourselves. This includes spaces that are easily utilized by the wider community as a catalyst for conversation, learning, service, and the arts, flexible space to nurture spiritual growth through rites of passage, fellowship, and community service. I remember at one of the meetings we had, I'm wondering if it was the McLaughlins, talked about how the church sits sort of empty during the week. And what about having a space that is set up in a way that the community can use as well, that we're not paying for all the utilities or the building or the space, but it's sitting empty. When we were on our pilgrimage, we had churches that were hosting concerts and book reviews from, or homeless shelters feeding kids. And we do a little bit of that. We have a great acoustic space up here that's very popular for concerts and coming up for a Carrie Newcomer. But how can we create our space that maybe be more of that so we're really involved in that? Let's look at the next one, Luke. And then the last statement that they took, again, coming up with everybody's thoughts and feedback idea, but this one sits in practicing justice, a space that is deeply connected with the natural world. This includes an eco-justice focus with sustainable utilities and land stewardship, connection to nature with windows, natural light that was already raised, outdoor green space for learning, spiritual practice, communal gardening, social events, and play. And that idea was already mentioned, having those outdoor spaces. We also need to think about the utilities that we spend in, it's been brought up multiple times in these gatherings and forums about, we want a green building. And right now our cinder block walls and our concrete tiles aren't necessarily green. What can we do? If we decide to stay in this building, what can we do to remodel to make it more energy efficient? If we decided to go to another building, how do we build a building that is more energy efficient and lives those values? Now that you've seen all three of those things, hope that we could see in a building, whether it is this building or another building?
This is super small, but I'm not much of a coffee drinker, so it'd be nice to have just more like tea options, and that's not really a building thing, but.
That is very important because I'm not a coffee drinker either. And so we can pass that on, that message on. But having a large kitchen that would enable us to really have some great setups here.
This kind of goes with a little bit, one of the topics earlier, but having a space that's large enough to host us to have tables about all of our groups that we have, where it doesn't feel constricted, where people can really learn about how to get involved in the church and what we do. There's really not, how we're set up now, a spot for that that makes sense with the flow of everything that happens on Sunday.
Great. Anything else? I saw some other hands. I'll see if I can get back this way.
Sorry, we're hiding in the back. I've been elected spokesperson for the table back here. For the youth, because they've been, yeah, they're back here, they're back here. We asked specifically with the faith development wing, what would they like to see, and to be honest, there was whiteboards, projectors, things that make it more conducive for our 21st century learning. There isn't any of that. There's Post-it notes we can use. They want wider hallways. It is really difficult to pass one another, pick up kids, get kids in any of the hallways. It's dark and it's cramped. So bigger hallways, bigger classrooms. The classrooms right now are just too small for the kids and the youth. Am I forgetting anything? And it's dark and gloomy. But, you know, we got to inspire inner light somehow, I guess.
All right, thank you. Your voice is very important. That even, you know, whether we're here or somewhere else, what can we do to give a space that is inspirational and bright, allows for movement and fits in the 21st century, and they don't come out saying, my RE classroom is dark and gloomy. That's not who we want to be as a congregation.
This is kind of already brought up with accessibility, but I'm just thinking we have a lot of stairs in this church. I think someone actually did injure themselves on our stairs at least once. I don't know if anyone was here for that. Mom remembers, yeah. Someone dislocated their knee on these stairs one time. It's great that we have elevators, but like there's still a lot of stairs. You know, you got stairs here, and then you have stairs to go up to like the memory room and up to use the gender neutral bathrooms. You also have to use stairs to use those bathrooms. And yeah. A lot of stairs.
Thank you. Russ.
I know we've been trying to work on this, but we still, being a person of color, it's virtually a white church community. And if we're talking about connecting with the community, we want to reflect their culture as well. Have some of their art or something to reflect their culture as well, to be welcome and connecting to their community as well. And that's big for me, because there really are harder in people of color here.
Thank you for that very important point. Luke, will you check and see if anybody online has comments while we finish up, and then we'll go to the online people.
Well, my comment is for Don. I have to tell you, decades ago, I was working at Methodist Hospital with a nurse, and her boyfriend played was involved with the choir and played the organ and everything. And what she told me was, oh, Pat, you have to go to that church. It looks like a castle. And so I'm going, oh, a castle, you know? So there's something, even though I totally agree with all that people are saying, I still like the looks of it because it looks like a castle.
With King Luke in the castle.
I'm the jester.
The jester. Do we have any online questions or comments right
Not
now?
right now.
About these? All right. So I'm going to turn it over to Jody. So she's going to talk a little bit about where are we now in this process and where are we going this fall?
Hi, whenever I have a presentation like this, I'm really torn between chitty-chatting it or actually reading it to you. Especially some of you back there, I'm somebody that I quite often can't read what's on the projector from the back. So I'm going to try to do both. I can't. Yeah.
We can turn it up.
Is it better here? Unless, if I can't get it better, I'll have somebody else do it. How's that? I know that I've been in the presence of someone with COVID, so I am not taking off my mask.
That's better.
Is it better? Okay. All right, I'll push it in here. All right. So hopefully where we are now in this process will continue to move along as we can gather, because that's what stalled us in the past, is that we just weren't together. So the Building Our Future team gathered information, shared what they learned, and had forums before the pandemic. Well, even through the pandemic, if you were tuned in, you really could still get information. And the board of directors here has requested the Building Our Future team to re-engage the congregation so that we can get the momentum going again. And so we're putting together all these forums, everybody's input, and it is important to hear all the different opinions in this process, because we're all a part of this congregation. So, next slide. The focus of the January vote. Okay, this first January vote will determine if we focus our energy on remaining here in our current property, or if we prefer to go to a different property. I guarantee you that decision has not been made. We are all part of that decision. Regardless of what you feel you might hear, and it might be slanted just by who's participating in the conversation, but this is our decision to make together. So think about it, does remaining on the current church property offer our best means to realize our collective vision and goals for a building? Now, we have choices. We could keep it the way it is, the status quo. We could remodel, or we could tear down and rebuild on the same property. So that's the option one of staying here. The January decision isn't, let's say, it's either it is stay here or there, then there are other decisions to make. So that's decision one. Or does moving to a different property offer our best means to realize our collective vision and goals for a building? And then we have choices there. Rent a property. I have to admit, I hadn't heard that one. So, I don't know. Rent a property. Build on a property to be determined, either the donor property or a different property. So the decision for January is just stay here or go elsewhere, then we have to contemplate those other decisions. Are there questions about that?
I'm new to this party. What do you mean the donor property?
Okay, well, maybe somebody else from,
We have had a property donated as an option for building on. During the pandemic, we were able to look at it a little bit, have some tours, looking at the property. It is in northeast Rochester, near the Mayo Clinic Northeast building in a neighborhood back there. We have appreciated the donation, but we have not formally accepted the donation as what we want to do. We really need to make our decision first. Do we want to stay here on this property? Do we want to remodel this building or rebuild on this property? Or does this property not allow us to meet our vision and our goals for what we want in a building? And then do we want to go somewhere else? If we decide that as a congregation we really wanted to go, we feel we need to go somewhere else to meet our vision and goals, then we would be having conversations again about, okay, what is this property? What are the advantages, disadvantages of this property, other properties? What are our options there? Great question.
thank you so much for asking that question, because especially if you're new, I have to apologize because that assumption was made that everybody would know what we were talking about. And so, excuse me.
I have a more general backup question, and probably you've discussed it and I just wasn't aware, but is there an optimum size for a congregation? Is it better to have 2 congregations rather than 1 and 2 smaller churches? Maybe Luke or one of you have talked about that. What is our vision for the size we would like to be? Is it better to have a small group and establish another church? I don't know what our vision is relative to size and what's optimal.
So one of the things we're going to do at the very end is we're going to give everybody an index card where we want you to write down comments, questions, things you want us to think about as the Building Our Future team moves forward in the forums. And I think that is a great question to bring forward to the Building Our Future team, and then they can hopefully address it in one of the forums. Because I have not been part of the Building Our Future team conversations. I have heard that option come up once, now twice, and so it's worth a conversation, I think. I think anybody's concerns or questions are valid, and we want all voices heard, and that's one of the reasons I want to pass out index cards and let everybody take some time to write down a comment or question, because we don't have time to have everybody share here, or maybe I'm a quieter, more introverted person and I don't want to speak in front of the group. Your voice still deserves to be heard.
I'm just wondering, is there going to be, before the January vote, some financial projections, like how much would it cost to tear down and rebuild versus how much would it cost to remodel versus how much does it cost to build on the donated property? That would help me to make a decision.
Thank you. I'll go on because these are the possible forum topics for the fall. And again, like Kim was saying, if you have other ideas for topics, then please put those on your note card. Review the report from Rachel Maxwell, the UUA consultant. Examining challenges of our current space, envisioning possibilities of what we could do, considering broad, high-level costs, different options, yes, and exploring answers to questions from the congregation. So the goal of the forums is sharing information, having discussions about which option and options are going to best help us to achieve our collective vision. Next slide. Oh, I thought a question?
A while back, I'm not quite sure how long ago this was. Okay, I'll try that.
Okay.
Maybe you don't want to hear what I'm going to say. All right. A while back, we had some architects come down, and my question is, did we ever get a report from them? How much of that land is actually buildable? My question.
Yes, the Building Our Future team has been consulting with a variety of architects. They have looked at this building and how we could remodel to get what we want out of this building. They've also looked at the land and how that land might suit us. And that would be the focus of some of the forums this fall, but make sure and write that question down so that we have that in our set of questions and comments. But yes, they have been working with architects, and I would expect that information is really important. Are we going to look at particular building designs at this time? No, we're not ready for that. We're not ready to talk about the specifics, but what we want to talk about is what do we know from the architects about how we can fit our building values and needs within this building or a different building. A couple questions back there. Pat? While we're doing this, Molly is passing out cards. You can start to write these down. If you're online, you can put it in the chat for Luke.
I know a year or two ago, we had the group of people share a lot of information that they knew at the time about the space and costs and things. Is that information still available online? Because I do recall hearing how much we could sell this church for, how much a remodel would cost, and how much to build a new one. And boy, that was a game changer for me. It was like, wow, it would cost a lot to remodel this place. So is that information, George, still available?
I'm not sure if it's available online right now, but it is something that would be included in the forums. I'm just going to take it from here, Jody. So these are tentative dates for the forums. Keep an eye out on the e-news. There, as Pat said, there is a lot of information, and that's why we're having multiple different forums. What we're going to do is take the comments and questions, try to develop themes, assign a theme to particular dates, and get that information out and publicized. In preparation for our congregational vote the week of January 22nd. What exactly is going to be the wording of that vote? I don't know yet, 100% sure exactly, because the board has not had time to wordsmith what we want that to be, and probably won't until the October meeting, but as soon as we have that out, it will be shared with everybody and part of the forum process. We'll get that done as soon as we can. Luke, can you go to the next one? Pat also asked about online. If you're somebody that wants to go and look at what has been gathered so far, you go to our homepage, and right here is the Building Our Future tab. Underneath, we have forums and presentations. It is our goal to videotape all of the forums that we present this fall. If you are out of town or you can't come, we want it to be on there so you could watch it on your own time if you were wanting to do that. There's information about the potential gift property. There's information about our building consultation with Rachel Maxwell, including her reports. And there's comments, suggestions, questions. That site, the board was feeling, was getting a little difficult to negotiate. So the Building Our Future team has been working with Erica to streamline things a little bit. So if you are finding that you can't find something, ask away. We're hoping to have Building Our Future people here on Sundays to help you find the information you need. But hopefully we can make sure everybody has what they need to make their best informed decision. So, given that, next slide. But I'm going to read through the building vision again, and this is your opportunity to write down any questions or comments you have. If you're finished, you can just hold it up in the air, and one of the Building Our Future or board members will come collect it. But our goal, what we have put together as a congregation, is that we would like a building that we value welcome and compassion. We want a space committed to compassion and accessibility that is more natural than an accommodation, including gender-neutral bathrooms and easy wayfinding for a diversity of mobility and sensory needs. This includes spaces that are connected, inviting, and inspirational. Community and spiritual growth. We want a space that's intended for use beyond ourselves. This includes spaces that are easily utilized by the wider community, the conversation, service, and the arts. And I'm thinking about your comment here, Gus, about the diversity at work, and I think that's really important to bring forward. A flexible space to nurture spiritual growth through rites of passage, fellowship, and community service. And finally, we value practicing justice in our building, a space that's deeply connected with the natural world, and this includes an eco-justice focus with sustainable utilities and land stewardship, connection to nature with windows, natural light, and an outdoor green space for learning, spiritual practice, communal gardening, social events, and play. Instead of sending our kids up that play structure, up the hill where we can't see them. All right, so everybody's having the chance to write something down. Is there anybody that would like to voice any questions or comments to the whole group at this point? Otherwise, this is an opportunity for discussion at your table, discussion with the group. Do we have any online questions or comments?
Yeah, do you want me to? Someone wrote, and I didn't ask if they wanted to be named or not. So someone wrote the importance of accessibility, to reiterate that being on a bus line or in a central location to those served is important, and they love the attention to accessibility in all other ways. No others so far.
Okay.
I've also encouraged them to go online or email as well.
All right. Well, we thank you very much for joining us here today as we begin re-engaging with all of this information. We're grateful for the Building Our Future team and all the time they've invested in the past and coming this fall to begin re-looking at this information. We are grateful for your questions and your comments and how they can help strengthen the forums going forward so that we can provide everybody with the information they need to feel good about which way they vote, whichever way it is. Again, I want to reassure you, there is no bias one way or another. The board is just really wanting to move forward so that we can decide how are we going to invest our time and energy. We've gathered all this information. It's now time to take a first step, and it's just our first step. Do we want to, does being here fit our values and us the best, or does building somewhere else, does that fit who we are and what we value in a building?
Is the January vote a binding vote?
Very good question. We have been working with Rachel Maxwell, and we've talked to her about that vote. And she felt it was very important that the result of that vote be what she called a supermajority. We need to look at our bylaws and figure out what is our voting threshold. If we don't reach that supermajority, then that says we're not ready to make that decision. We need to go back, re-engage with the information, take questions and comments, get more information before we're ready to move forward. But hopefully the process this fall will help us in beginning to move forward, because these are conversations our congregation has been having for years. And the statement in Rachel Maxwell's report that stood out to me is we are making do in a building that was designed for 150. And I believe our membership is now almost, 388, 390. So, anything else? All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, we got one more here.
I just wanted to clarify so people maybe don't use this as a decider of staying or going. It's my understanding that the donors of the property that's been offered are also willing to make an equal amount of value to the church. So it's not a decision, if you vote to stay, it would not eliminate that as a donation, I guess is the point. And also, it doesn't preclude looking at other sites. So it's not if you vote to go to a new site, you're not voting to go to that site. That'll be a later decision. That makes sense?
Thank you for that clarification. Anything else right now? Well, I am so grateful to be back in this building with 60 people for our first Tupper Supper in a year and a half?
2 years.
2 years?
Yeah.
Doesn't it feel good?
Yeah.
And to be able to have a forum with all of us here. Please write down all your comments and questions. We've got board members and people standing around to gather them. They're very important to the Building Our Future team as they think about what information do they need to provide, what is most important as we move forward. Thank you very much. I appreciate your coming. Thank you to those of you online. Thanks for joining in. And I hope you have a great evening.